Sedimentary rocks. If you had to carve tools out of stone, would you know which rocks to use? Dr. Beverly Chirali, an archaeologist at Indiana University of Pennsylvania, studies stone tools that were used by people in Pennsylvania 10,000 years ago. Dr. Chirali has found that these people crafted spearheads out of the sedimentary rocks called chert and jasper. Chert is hard and has a very fine texture. It is brittle but does not fracture along thin, even planes. So chert can be shaped somewhat easily by flaking off chips, producing the sharp edges needed for spearheads. What properties of chert allow it to be carved into sharp spearheads? How do sedimentary rocks form? The banks of a cool stream may be made up of tiny sand grains, mud, and pebbles. Shells, leaves, and even bones may also be mixed in. All of these particles are examples of sediment. Sediment is small solid pieces of material that came from rocks or living things. Sedimentary rocks form when sediment is deposited by water and wind, as shown on the next page. Most sedimentary rocks are formed through a sequence of processes: weathering, erosion, deposition, compaction, and cementation. Weathering and erosion. Rock on Earth's surface is constantly broken up by weathering, the effects of freezing and thawing, plant roots, acid, and other forces on rock. After the rock is broken up, the fragments are carried away as a result of erosion, the process by which running water, wind, gravity, or ice carries away bits of broken up rock and soil. Deposition. Water can carry sediment to a lake or ocean. Here, the material is deposited in layers as it sinks to the bottom. Deposition is the process by which sediment settles out of the water or wind carrying it. Compaction. Thick layers of sediment build up gradually over millions of years. The weight of new layers can squeeze older sediments tightly together. The process that presses sediments together is compaction. Cementation. While compaction is taking place, some minerals in the rock slowly dissolve in the water. Cementation is the process in which dissolved minerals crystallize and glue particles of sediment together. Put the terms listed in the word bank in the proper sequence to show how mountains can change into sedimentary rock. What are the three major types of sedimentary rock? Geologists classify sedimentary rocks according to the type of sediments that made up the rock. The three major groups of sedimentary rocks are clastic rocks, organic rocks, and chemical rocks. Different processes form each of these types of rocks. Clastic rocks. Most sedimentary rocks are made up of broken pieces of other rocks. A clastic rock is a sedimentary rock formed when the rock fragments are squeezed together. The fragments can range in size from clay particles that are too small to be seen without a microscope to large, heavy boulders. Clastic rocks are grouped by the size of the rock fragments or particles of which they are made. Some common clastic rocks shown in Figure 1 are shale, sandstone, conglomerate, and breccia. Shale forms tiny particles of clay. Water deposits the clay particles in thin, flat layers. Sandstone forms when the sand on beaches, the ocean floor, riverbeds, and sand dunes. Most sand particles consist of quartz. Some clastic sedimentary rocks contain rock fragments that are different sizes. If the fragments have rounded edges, they form conglomerate. Fragments with sharp edges form breccia. All right, so identify the main idea. Clastic rocks are grouped by the size of the blank they contain. Clastic rocks are sedimentary rocks that form particles of other rocks. Identify. Match the clastic rocks to the 4 photographs below them. Write your answer in the spaces provided. Organic rocks. You may be familiar with the rocks called coal and limestone, shown in Figure 2. Both are sedimentary rocks, but instead of forming from particles of other rocks, they form from the remains of material that was once living. Organic rock forms when the remains of plants and animals are deposited in layers. The term organic refers to the substances that were once part of living things or were made by living things. Coal forms from the remains of swamp plants buried in water. As layer upon layer of plant remains build up, the weight of the layers squeeze the decaying plants together. Over millions of years, they slowly change into coal. Limestone forms in the ocean where many living things such as coral, clams, and oysters have hard shells or skeletons made up of calcite. When these ocean animals die, their shells pile up on the ocean floor. Over millions of years, compaction and cementation can change the thick sediment into limestone. Organic rocks, such as limestone and coal, are sedimentary rocks that form from the remains of living things. Complete the graphic organizers to show how coal and limestone form. So complete these two graphic organizers. Apply it. These rock towers in Mono Lake, California are made of tufa, a form of limestone. Tufa forms from water solutions that contain dissolved materials. The towers formed under the water. They became exposed when the water level in the lake dropped as a result of water needs for the city of Los Angeles. Read the text about the major types of sedimentary rocks, then answer the questions. Tufa is a classic organic chemical sedimentary rock. What mineral was dissolved in the waters of Mono Lake and later crystallized to form the rock towers? When acid comes into contact with calcite, the acid bubbles. How can geologists use acid to confirm that the rock towers are made of limestone? Chemical rocks. Limestone can also form when calcite that is dissolved in lakes, seas, or underground water comes out of a solution and forms crystals. This kind of limestone is considered a chemical rock. Chemical rock forms when minerals dissolved in a water solution crystallize. Chemical rocks can also form from mineral deposits that are left when seas or lakes evaporate. For example, rock salt is made of the mineral halite, which forms by evaporation. How are sedimentary rocks used? People have used sedimentary rocks throughout history for many different purposes, including for tools and building materials. Chert was used to make spearheads by people who lived in Pennsylvania more than 10,000 years ago. Other people also made arrowheads out of flint for thousands of years. Flint is a hard rock, yet it can be shaped to a point. It forms when small particles of silica settle out of the water. Sedimentary rocks such as sandstone and limestone have been used as building materials for thousands of years. Both types of stone are soft enough to be cut easily into blocks or slabs. The White House in Washington, D.C. is built of sandstone. Today, builders use sandstone and limestone on the outside of walls of buildings, such as the building shown in Figure 3. Limestone also has industrial uses. For example, it is used in making cement and steel. Limestone is a popular building material. However, acid rain reacts with the calcite and limestone, damaging buildings made from it. Do the benefits of constructing limestone buildings outweigh the damage acid rain causes to these buildings? Explain. All right, assess your understanding. Shale forms from tiny particles of clay, sand, or mica. How is clay deposited to form shale? You come across a thick deposit of shale that forms a layer in the ground. What can you infer about the area's past environment?